the Hamptons had an idea around, I guess as well, with the lucky number 8, around 8 different habits that affect us. And most people, there's probably 3 or 4 that you could look at to improve. And the key to habit or lifestyle change, there's a book actually that called Atomic Habits by
James Clear, right?
Yes, that touches on this. And so the 8 habits that we looked at around preventative healthcare and being able to live an active, more healthy lifestyle is the focus on nutrition, exercise, specifically, especially as I've learned, strength and cardio. So strength, as we get older, we naturally become a bit weaker. Like for men, your testosterone levels lower. You're susceptible to your bone density getting lower, so you're then potentially more susceptible to breakages, or especially as you get into your 70s, just breaking a hip. And I think in the States there's something like 19 people die from accidents from where they've broken their hips and then repercussions. So it is something that as you get older, you can really affect by, especially doing some weight training, which I had no idea. I probably didn't do enough. So and as you get older, you atrophy. So obviously strength and cardio is, people are obviously aware they need to do more exercise, specifically, especially as we get older. Strength is an important one. Stress and mental health. So people look at it as a number of different things, but definitely for people, especially in our stage of life, working and trying to build businesses, people can get stressed. So that was one area that we thought was something for some people that need to focus on. Obviously nutrition is key to everything, and part of the Hamptons process is putting you through a panel of bloods, which we've chosen to try and get as greater insight as someone's body, and then obviously tracking that over time. So it's surprising through the initial patients that we've had that nearly everybody doesn't eat enough fish, so their omega levels are low. A lot of men surprisingly have low levels of calcium and vitamin B, and then obviously for women sometimes with being slightly different, again their vitamin B and vitamin D levels again lower than expected. So all of those things you can affect through changing in your diet, nutrition, through better eating or eating better, more vegetables, or less
fish.
Lots of, and especially for omegas, fish. So everyone, and I think you really have to make a conscious effort to eat more fish, to get your levels up. Even I thought I ate a reasonable amount of fish, but could definitely do a better job, having seen the bloods. And then the nice thing from what we were trying to do with Hamptons is be able to track that over time. And we've had about 50 patients who've done now 6 months, and we use a bit like there's an app out there in the States for being able to called Inside Tracker, being able to measure your blood markers. And so we've built something similar to be able to track people over time and see how they evolve their bloods. And it's interesting how when you advise people around some supplements and changes in diet, how quickly in 6 months they do make a difference. And we sort of put people in categories of red, orange, green, so they can then see a simple chart as to how their bloods do over time. And it's surprising how many from 70-year-olds to 35-year-old men, how they've managed to improve just through either supplements or changes in their nutrition.
Wow.
Some of their blood markers, and then through exercise, some of the changes in their cholesterol levels and some of the markers for potential future issues with their heart have improved to put them on the right journey, which it's really satisfying. It shows that you're doing good. And I think for them, if they've made some sacrifices in their life, and it's something that they'll have to continue to do, it's not something like a diet. That the problem with nutrition and diets is people think it's just a temporary solution, but
no,
it's something with nutrition you've got to do for the rest of your life as we get older.
It's day in, day out consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. And so that it becomes a natural habit. Yeah, and then how you work on it, on gradually adding other habits around that. So what else we got? So we got to so strength, cardio, nutrition, stress, vices is another one that obviously for some people is an issue, and predominantly in Australia being a culture that's dominated through alcohol, alcohol being one, could be gambling another, which Australians have a habit of enjoying, and then smoking, which obviously for maybe our parents' generation was something that has seen a dramatic decrease. But again, for some people, that's something that even at our age you can make a dramatic change to your potential longevity if you can stop smoking. So those are sort of examples of vices. There are others. What else have we got to? So things that you wouldn't necessarily pay too much attention to is how important to get a proper night's sleep. So the ability to track that and to see over time if you can improve your sleep habits, and then hydration, which is sort of linked to nutrition really, but again, how important it is to drink the right amounts of water and what
water, not beer, not wine, not soft drinks, water,
for
right?
Australians, and examples of that. So we're sort of massive advocates of having some sort of tracking device, whether it's a Garmin. You can see
I got one too.
Oh, great! Yeah, they're fantastic, and even just having your phone on you for tracking your steps, but the ability to track both your exercise, whether it's simply just walking to running to heart rate, are so important, and then if you can, whether it's a Whoop, which is a new technology in the States with really sophisticated tracking, just a band that quite a few professional athletes have backed. I think it's valued at $3.5 billion now.
Wow. Sorry, Trish, what does it do? Sorry, the Whoop?
So the Whoop band, worth checking out. So they were started about, I think it was 10 years ago by a guy, I think it's either Harvard or MIT, who was a semi-professional athlete, and he really went into the ability to track recovery and how important it was for athletes not to overtrain. And he was surprised how, if he recovered better and managed that, how his performances when he actually competed improved. And so a lot of the time, people don't understand what they should be doing pre an event, and not necessarily measuring some of the markers that they can. And so he came up with that. So it's a closed environment, unlike Garmin or Fitbit. So the data is all through an app. So you pay a monthly subscription. So it's a sort of software as a service product. You get a band that's sort of almost like a leather strap or a rubber strap with a sort of Fitbit style device attached to you, but with no sort of watch face or no face or anything. It's all through the app, and it's really focused on monitoring of your heart rate, so the variability of your heart, really into this measurement of sleep patterns, and obviously how much power you put into some of the exercises that you do, and it comes out with a number in terms of how long you're going to take to recover before you suggested exercises are done again. And that, with the combination with tracking of sleep, gives people this sort of recovery number that gives them an idea of whether they need to lessen their training or they're happy.
When you say recovery, Trish, do you mean in a sense of, if you do a high intensity workout, for example, it essentially measures how quickly your body can revert to its resting heart rate?
Or no, it's as in how much you should then not do or not train before before training again. So if I just I've just done an F45 style workout just now, and it would then tell me, oh, well, maybe you should not train for another 16 hours or not train for a day, because you've exerted yourself so much that you'd actually potentially put yourself into a harmful level where you're putting too much stress on your body, so you're more susceptible to illness, or for if you're doing muscle-based exercises, you know, that the muscles haven't recovered, so you're not going to be working as efficiently as or effectively as you could if you worked again within the next, you know, 16 hours.
Interesting.
So it's, I guess it's a bit more focused on athletic performance, but the advantages for us, for people like us looking at preventative healthcare, is the interest in sleep and recovery and heart rate variability plus your heart rate. So for example, obviously one of the habits we look at is vices. So alcohol is one, and we've done some studies of people at Hampton's going through the process of going off alcohol for a month and on alcohol and off alcohol, and studied that through their data. And so alcohol, you know, there's a lot of sugars in it, so it feeds your heart, likes being fed alcohol. It increases the heart rate, so you know it works a little bit harder than it otherwise would. And the other thing is because of the sugars and the exercise, so the heart rate starts to beat a bit faster, but it also smooths out. The heart enjoys alcohol and it smooths it out, so you end up getting a steadier, higher heart rate. And the test we did on someone who has a heart rate below 50, so pretty fit, and on a month when he was drinking alcohol, so you know, say for example the Christmas period he was drinking, and then in February he went off alcohol, so the average resting heart rate changed by about 5 beats a minute. So if you compound that over a day, that's a lot of extra beats. And the other thing that
puts strain on your heart, is that correct? Or
yeah, just you know, you're using your heart more than you otherwise would have done if you weren't drinking. And the other thing is, for your heart to work effectively, you want the heart to have more volatility in when it does beat. But the effects of alcohol and sugar and eating and diet, the alcohol actually smooths out, so the heart beats more, but it also has a more rhythm. It's more rhythmical, which again is something that you don't want to have a heart. You want to have a heart that's has a sort of more variability in the way that it works.
Is that reflective of someone doing exercise, in a sense that if they do exercise, their heart rate could, I don't know, go 130 beats per minute, 140, 150, maybe get back down to a resting heart rate of 75? Do you mean in that sense, in terms of the variability? And
no, as in just how it works. It's more that how it actually, each beat. So you when you measure your heart, it would beat. It doesn't go, say if you're 60 beats per minute, it doesn't beat every second. It would beat maybe one, and then it'd be 1.5 the next beat, and then the next one could be 30.5 a second, and then so if it does vary a bit, it's not a linear number.
Got it.
And so you want to have a bit of, it might have a gap of 2 seconds, and then 1 second, and then half a second. You want it to not have a steady heart rate. So you want more variability than less. Is a good way to know that your heart's working effectively, and again is healthier for you, and it helps you with exercise. So because it's hard with all this data to know what you should be tracking and what's useful.
But yeah, I could imagine that there's a lot of variables for someone to track.
Yeah, so it's such a complicated space. So that's where Whoop and even Garmin to a degree, if you look at your app on Garmin, the metrics, there's a lot of data there, but the key ones we thought were the heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, the amount of deep sleep that you have, the amount of steps that you do every day, whether you did do some sort of formalized exercise, where you got your heart to to go at a reasonable rate. So whether that's an active walk, or depending on your age, or trying to do some sort of cardio or physical exercise. And if you can try and target a few of those per week, even if it could be getting your heart rate going just over a 3-minute sprint or something, but it really does get your heart into
just anything that gets it pumping, really.
Say again, Jeff.
Anything basically to put under stress.
Correct. Yeah. When you look at some of the stuff that David Sinclair talks about, and again, there's a book. I'll get it for you, actually.
Yeah, sure. I'm very curious. You mentioned before when...
Yeah, this book here called Lifespan.
Yeah, I read it. Great book.
And
Atomic
Atomic
Habits.
Habits. Yeah, yeah. Both of those we've referenced a lot. And in the Lifespan, the insights there around that some of the most interesting plants and some of the goodness that we get from plants are the ones that are the most stressed. And so for humans, again, it's if you can put your body through some stresses. So for example, there's a lot of work from a guy called Wim Hof around exposing your body to cold.
Yes.
And then, there's guys in Sweden and Finland who have the combination of cold and hot, and how, even a sauna, the benefits of a sauna was putting your body through heat stress as well. But more importantly, the stressing yourself or a plant that's being stressed, it does stuff to your body that encourages cells to reproduce more effectively, or to also even to reproduce as we get older. We're not necessarily using parts of our body, and it does seem in life and in plant life, people that are exposed and have stresses to them seem to live a longer, healthier life. And the plants that we eat, there's more goodness in the ones that are more stressed. So I think that David Sinclair talks about resveratrol, one of the chemicals that's found in red wine, and how that's good for you. And I think just the grape that is has the most amount of resveratrol in it is Pinot Noir. And so if you are going to have a glass of wine or are going to drink alcohol, then I think the best grape is a Pinot. And it talks about, so the grapes that are stressed the most when they're harvested, they often have the most amount of this chemical in them. And for example, it talks about, whether it's eating grains or nuts, that some of the plants that are affected with stress, they actually have the most amount of goodness in them. And so that's, if we can expose our human body to certain stresses like cold and heat, and exercise, how then over time it helps us reproduce more efficiently and get stronger.
So when you say plants that are under the most stress, do you mean those plants who basically grow in very harsh conditions?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That. So I think he spoke about the grapes growing in stressed, hot environments, which they have to struggle to grow, and or rice grown in certain areas. That often the insight seems to be that those types of plants that have undergone stressful environments to grow actually have some of the best ingredient chemicals in them for then us to consume. And the same for humans, the ones that are exposed to hot or cold, or have and it sort of goes then onto fasting and nutrition. If we're having to fight for survival, naturally we seem to be stronger and fitter and healthier than the sort of American advert of someone who goes to McDonald's and is living the dream of eating lots of sugar and Coca-Cola and drinking too much and having too much steak or burgers. That's the worst scenario, and lowers our life expectancy. So I think David Sinclair talks about how you can quite easily lengthen your lifespan by 7 years if you adopt some of these principles around nutrition and doing a bit more exercise.
Interesting. So I'm curious, when you raised an earlier point about exercise, where you mentioned that you're doing a lot of cardio, but you weren't doing enough strength training. Is that correct? Or
yeah.
How did you pick that up? How did you know that you were doing?
It's only through going through the process of taking over Hampton's life and trying to understand better around how you can put someone on a better path and a better journey. And the interesting thing from the data from Hampton's was we've had guys that are even 35 that have come through, and they are susceptible to osteoporosis and to brittle bones, basically. So they're more likely to break a bone, or as they get older, from it falling over, they might be susceptible to breaking a hip or a leg. And for males that have gone through this, they are basically not doing enough physical work. They're not lifting things, and we are animals that were meant to sort of be running around and finding our own food and climbing trees.
Not stuck behind a desk.
Not sitting on a desk looking at a computer screen hunched over typing. And so the problems that puts on our body mean that even men are under 40 have been shown to be quite susceptible to osteoporosis and potential issues with their bones as they get older. So the best way to overcome that is to move more, but also we do a test around your strength and grip strength, and just by lifting, whether it could be up to weights in a gym, to gardening and lifting stones, or
huge benefits, isn't
chopping trees, or you're chopping some actual physical work without having to use machinery. Those sort of things will quickly improve your bone mineral density, and we do scans using a DEXA, which is sort of a it doesn't use X-rays, so it's not harmful to us, but it uses a technology to physically go through and understand the body composition and bone mineral density of us. And so we use that every 6 months on patients to understand both their lean mass and body fat and their bone mineral density, so that we can have an understanding of how they are evolving over time, and what their base level is before they take part in the process.
Interesting. I'm curious. So Hampton Light is very much helping men and women fundamentally live a very healthy lifestyle. And like what you said, it's nutrition, it's exercise, it's reining in on your vices, it's hydration, it's sleep, it's minimizing stress, having a strong mental mind, and I think there was one more, I believe, Trish, 8 or
what have we missed?
So we've got nutrition, exercise,
flexibility,
flexibility,
so improving your so as we get older, so mobility, we've called it, and it's, again, for a lot of people, as well as obviously looking to move more, you might be a bit limited in some of your movements, and so by concentrating on improving your flexibility and your mobility, enable you to get into a better position, which enables you to then use and engage those muscles and keep them moving, or your bones, keeping them in the ability to still function properly. So especially for older people, you see that they are hunched, so there's some mobility stuff around their muscles that could get them into better positions, and around your hips and your thoracic and your back. There's a lot of stuff we can do to whether it's Pilates or yoga,
kettlebell workouts, I think they're the best.
Or just moving more, you will start to engage those muscles, which will improve your posture and your mobility. So that's the sort of final.
So essentially,
there's all sort of sensible stuff that we all know about,